Hello again. Hello and welcome to 10 Things About Writing. And today I'm going to talk about, I'm going to call it Enough with the Bullshit Already. Because a lot of people this week have been talking to me on Twitter about how to tell the difference between good writing and bad writing. And it seems to me that some of these people are perhaps aiming in the wrong direction if they want to be writers. I hear an awful lot about what makes good writing, what makes good art. And I think all of this starts very young. It starts with our reading habits. And this is another thing that people have been talking to me about on Twitter this week. What books their children should be reading. What are the good books that their children should be reading instead of presumably the bad ones that they're reading. And although these problems sound as if they're separate, one being a kid problem, the other being a writer and an adult problem, I think they're actually linked. They are linked to each other by what I am going to call bullshit thinking, which encompasses a number of things: intellectual insecurity and snobbery and the desire to prove something to the world that actually doesn't need to be proved at all. So I'm going to start with reading and kids. Now, I was a teacher for a long time. I taught a lot of kids, and not many of them were readers. Part of the problem was that I taught in a boys' school, and statistically boys don't read as much as girls anyway. And part of the problem was that in this boys' school, which was a private school, and where there were a lot of well-meaning parents wanting their boys to get on, I was constantly butting heads with some of these well-meaning parents who would come to me saying, "My son, he doesn't read. Well, all he does read is rubbish, like Stephen King and Terry Pratchett." And I'm thinking, well, first of all, those people are not rubbish. And also, why are you interfering with what your son is reading? Yeah, these parents were parents of boys in their early teens mostly. And I used to see that in a class of maybe 20, 25 boys, there would be only 3 or 4 of these boys who were readers. And the idea that they could be put off reading completely by parents insisting that instead of reading Terry Pratchett, they should be reading Dickens or Chaucer, it really boiled my piss. And I used to try very kindly to tell them that actually it was not their place to interfere. That children know rather better than adults what they want to read. And that whatever they are reading means that they are on the path to reading something else, unless some idiot adult gets in the way and tells them not to do it. And knowing kids like I do, I know that it doesn't take very much to knock them off a path. It doesn't take much to knock their confidence. And generally, if a parent or even a teacher, and I have to say teachers are also guilty of doing this, tells them, "You shouldn't be reading that, you should be reading this," what usually happens is not that they gravitate to the thing that is given to them as better and more worthy. Instead, they just stop reading altogether. They lose the habit. And so a child who has been told that they are reading the wrong thing, a child that has been criticised or judged for reading the wrong thing, tends to grow into an adult who doesn't read at all. This is a no-win situation for parents, for teachers, for children. And it is something that parents should take into account when they watch their children reading genre fiction, graphic novels, non-fiction, games, when they see them reading on their phone, when they see them reading on a Kindle, when they watch them listening to audiobooks, which is also reading. If you are a parent and you have a child, and you find yourself starting to say to a child, "You shouldn't be doing that, you should be doing this," just stop it. Stop it. Enough with the bullshit. Let them get on with it. Let them grow. Let them learn. It is vitally important for the future of writers and writing and children and society that we do not put people off reading. Reading should be inclusive. Reading isn't some kind of club that only the special people can join. People who have looked at some of these other videos will know that I've said the same thing about writing. It is not a club for the special people. It is a place for everybody to come and for everybody to find what they need at any given time. And obviously, the reading needs of an 11-year-old are not the same as the reading needs of a 16-year-old or a 20-year-old or a 40-year-old or a 50-year-old. But if you are to get a child into the habit of reading, and in my first video I mentioned joy, the joy of writing, the joy of reading is just the same. If you are not reading for pleasure, then you will not be able to sustain reading at all. And all of these things feed later into your view of the world, your view of writing, your view of literature. Which brings me to literature. Now, having been at the same time a literary novelist and a genre novelist, I get to straddle two worlds in a rather uncomfortable way. Some of my books get reviews in The Guardian, some of them don't. Some of them are viewed as serious literature, some of them are not. And I get to talk to people from a range of different literary genres, and I like this. I enjoy it. I read in various genres. I have never said I will not read this, because actually that is just a celebration of ignorance. To say that you are not curious about something, that you are not willing to explore something, is the absolute antithesis of intelligence, of culture. We should, all of us, be looking at writing in all its splendour. Because actually writing is something that offers different things to different people at different times. Some days I want to be intellectually challenged. Some days, and I have to say there are more days than that right now, I want to lie in the hammock and read something fun. This is fine. Both of these things are fine. And as writers, you should be aware that both of these things are fine in terms of what you are writing. Not everybody reads the same thing all the time. Not everybody needs the same thing all the time. And you can be forgiven for being taken in by the bullshit of the literary world from time to time, because there's an awful lot of it about. And there are an awful lot of people, literary novelists for the main part, who are standing on their tiny soapboxes and saying in their loud voices, my book is more worthy than the book you are reading or the book you are writing. And this makes people worried. It makes people worried that they're not reading the right thing. It also makes them worried that they are not writing the right thing. And to them, I think, the right thing seems to be something that proves that you are clever. Now, speaking as a writer in different genres, I have never tried to prove that I was clever. I don't have to prove my academic credentials because I've got them. I don't need to trot out my education and my doctorates and all the rest of it because they are completely irrelevant to what I'm writing. I am writing as me, not as somebody else. I don't have to create a clever persona to prove to people that my books are worthy. If they like them, they like them. And they might like them for all kinds of different reasons too. Some people read because they enjoy fine writing. Other people read because they like a good plot. Other people read just because they like descriptions of chocolate. And, so shoot me. I wrote a book which had a lot of descriptions of chocolate in it. And maybe some people read it for that reason. And I don't care. Because when I send a book out into the world, it belongs to whoever reads it. And they get out of it whatever they want to get out of it. And this is true of children, it is true of adults, it's true of readers, it is true of writers. You as writers, if you're watching this, have no obligation to prove your cleverness or your worthiness or your validity. All you need to do. And I'm not going to say write good art here either, although it's a phrase that I've heard an awful lot because actually that taps into the bullshit too. Good is just a question of perspective. Sometimes you need objectively well written. books. Sometimes you need fun. Very often you need both. I pity anybody who doesn't need fun from time to time. And so you write what you want to write. You write honestly. You write what speaks to you. You write what you love. Don't worry so much about whether it's good. Worry instead, if you must worry at all, about what works for you. What works for you is the first step. If you love it, then maybe somebody else will love it too. If it works for you and another person, then you have already done something. You have already achieved something. You are en road to somewhere. I will be ranting about something else next week, very probably. If you've got any questions, look for me on Twitter rather than ask them here. I'll be taking requests and I will post something else next week. Until then, see you soon. Bye bye.